Great.
Cool. All
The
right.
chair will take on from now on.
Sure. Hi, my name is Samuel. I am the chef for today's debate. No preferred pronouns. I invite the panel to introduce themselves. Sneha.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Snehank. I will be a panel trainee judge for this debate.
Cool. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules. Please ensure that you try and engage in POIs. Don't heckle during speeches. We'll try and share a timer for each speech, and please stick to time and ensure that you follow like predator timers between 1 minute and 6 minutes. If you want cues in the chat, please state your cues, and we'll ensure that it's accommodated. Um, I invite like the PM to open the case for side government. Here. Please state your name, pronouns if any, and give a countdown before you start.
Yeah, could the panel confirm whether I'm clearly audible?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, all right. So I'm Vishal. I'll be the PM from the government side, and my preferred pronouns are he/him. For POIs, don't raise your hand or unmute yourself. Just put it in the chat. I'll take it if I want to. And I'll begin at a self timer of three, two, one, go. All right. So the motion is that this house prefers a world where religions actively preach the concept of the divine gift. Now, what exactly is religion in this context? Religion is a part of everyday life. Religion is how people's ideology shaped, people's mindset has changed. It influences what decisions they take. It influences their outlook on life and how they interact with others, and affects the health of society in general. Now, because religion enjoys such a powerful spot, because it has historical legitimacy, there is also responsibility on religion that it ensures the society and its own religious community in general is kept well. The welfare of that society is the religion's responsibility, and we as the government believe that it is able to fulfill this responsibility by preaching about the concept of the divine gift. That is the burden of the government in this debate. Now, what do we mean by divine gift? It's open to interpretation, and I would like to make clear what we mean when we talk about divine gift. In the context slide, it's been clearly specified that the divine gift may be a talent bestowed upon a certain individual, which sets him apart from others, which probably makes him more capable in achieving certain tasks in certain domains. It is also it can also be perceived as a calling or purpose in life. These are two slightly different ways to look at things, and we will talk about how they are actually integrated with each other and how it plays a role in our paradigm. Now, the stakeholders in this debate are obviously the people of the religious community and people from other religious communities in general, how the interaction of that particular community is shaped with others and how society is affected in general. Now, we believe that this preaching of the divine gift increases the belief that such a divine gift can be achieved. Uh, it increases the belief that such a divine gift can be achieved. We look at this as a sort of positive reinforcement that if a certain individual is committed to a task and wishes to achieve something in that domain, then he will believe that if he keeps working in that domain, then eventually, because of his hard work, because of what efforts he's put in, he will be given a divine gift by a higher entity, which will enable him to better perform that task, and hence lead to a positive reinforcement cycle in which he ends up achieving his goal. This, you see, provides motivation for the individual to keep going, to not give up when things look hard, and to not give up. Basically, that hope is never lost, and things can get better with the arrival of this divine gift as long as he or she keeps at it. The person who is believed to get this divine gift also has a sense of responsibility, that since he is the receiver of this divine gift, Now, what does it mean if he is the receiver of the divine gift? It basically means that he perceives that he is is a receiver of this divine gift, and others around him perceive him to be a receiver. So, if this is the case, then he senses more responsibility, more motivation, and works towards this particular task with more efficiency. It also provides a barrier against wayward thoughts, a barrier against doing something which does not align with the principles of the religion. Religion is important. Religion plays a large part in life. Religion has a responsibility, but it is not absolute. There are other religions as well, and there are the interests and safeguards of them. Other religions should also be kept in mind. So what this divine gift preaching does is bring about a role model, and whatever task and whatever problems that the religious community is facing, that goal is elevated. A role model is received, and people believe that the problem is elevated, and hence it is brought to attention, and it can hence be more easily solved. With that, I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for your fine speech. I invite the leader of opposition to open the case for side opposition. Here.
Yeah, 5 seconds. Yeah, my name is Utkarsh. I will take yours after the 5th minute through chat. Prefer pronounce he, him. One second. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. First of all, some recharacterization on the basic idea that divine gift can be either a talent or a blessing. A blessing can be either money, fame, social positioning that you're in the current world, or a simple idea that they take as talent of some kind of musical genius or like an educational genius. If you is the basic idea that if you are in a good positioning in your life, and if you have a special talent, it's not because of your effort or not because of luck, it's just because god gifted you this. This is can be similar to the comparative that if you have less, if you are poor, if you don't have this talent, like they accept that some people might not get any kind of talents, you are given and chosen by god that this person does not deserve one. What is the basic idea? First idea is, how does religion work? Religion is basically an hierarchical position of how it's controlled. And if we are stating at the positioning of the world starting itself, religion is still going to position itself. How it's going to work, it's based on social capital, political capital, or the basic idea of money, how much money people give. So they want to create this amount of things because they want more money. So so the basic idea for first claim is that the basic social call out for any rich person or any person that gets this blessing somehow, or being in a higher positioning in the in the current life in this new world, is the basic idea that do not have any kind of call out. For what bias this? Rich people want you to be ignorant of this privilege and not question them how they got rich, because of the idea that any positioning, if you're still currenting in the new world, it's still going to run on some kind of economical system. And it's more likely that as humans are entrenched in the idea of wanting more, in the hedonistic cycle of wanting more, and gaining more income and being in the higher upward mobility, they want this idea that capitalism will reign supreme in this new world also. So the basic idea is that privatization by through the power of exploitation of the weak will continue, and you want this to not be called out, because this leads to some kind of revolution, some kind of people calling you out, and not like some kind of revolution will happen if you do if continues this continuous exploitation does continue. So what happens when you say that you cannot question us, this was a basic blessing from god? This creates some kind of ambiguity, because people don't want to question. They can question you, but they don't want to question god, because it's certainly entrenched in their whole life that they want to worship them, because god will help them, god loves them, and any kind of choices that they make is right for them. So less questioning is the idea that you do not deserve to be rich, but because you are now you are poor because of your karma or whatever the metric that they suggest, that our government want to suggest. This continuously breeds the idea that there is a certain amount of hierarchy that relates to the more exploitation that continues. That poor people will continue to be the servants of these rich people who somehow got this blessing, not because of exploitation, just because God blessed them to be such. Even if it is considering in this idea of being more talented, this is not directly, oh, you have some kind of talent because you worked hard for it, because of the just idea that God gifted you this. So other people are lower than you, other people did not deserve this. Second of all, the idea that this is directly relating to the factor how religion can use to be misused and misinterpreted as such, because of the idea that rich people can control religious communities, because of the donations that they give, because of the social positioning that they have. And we have seen in church and examples in the current status quo also. Um, religion uh, religion does not have a positioning for poor people to have this entrance and have this call out. What is the second point? This is the basic idea of those two sides. Because of they already say that the people will see you as a role model. They won't see you as a role model. They will become sad because they did not deserve this kind of gift, and they are not talented enough to become upward mobile. So this becomes two-parter. Either you get a gift and you have some kind of burden on you to reach some kind of positioning in your life because god told you so, and the whole society and the whole religious community that you're so contained in so want to make proud that you have a burden on yourself. Why this becomes important is because world does not work this way, that you once you get a gift you will become so talented, you become a superhero, that you will destroy everyone and reach this positioning. You will become the CEO of Microsoft somehow because your religion told you so. Is a basic idea that societal barriers exist, discrimination exists, and where you start from is basic idea. If you are poor, if you are a minority, you do not have enough resources to even get education, to even get food, while you will be able to told, oh, you have a burden on yourself to make your religion proud, your whole community proud. This becomes a factor that external factors are becoming more important in your life and does not directly relate to any kind of positioning that you have or any kind of changes that you become. This directly leads to you becoming less motivated, demotivated, becoming losing more hope, losing your faith, because god gifted you such kind of burden and everyone hates you because you did not reach that position. Then second of all, if you are poor, if you did not get a talent, if you deserve to be poor. Why is religion important as such? Is because religion gives you a community. Everyone is equal. People love you. When you are told you do not deserve something, you are not loved by God because you did not get a good gift, or because you have a social positioning that is discriminated against or is minority, or you have to look up to other people because you cannot reach the same ideas as them. Everyone wants to be better, and in this case you cannot be because you did not get this gift, and it's godly divine gift that decided it, rather than the exploitation that currently persists in the nature. This directly relates to the factor that you will lose your faith. You will not accept it as such because God doesn't love you. Why do you want to continue to pray to Him? When people lose their faith, they become ambiguous in their life. They do not have a certain community. They do not have the emotional support to be able to be happy. You do not have any kind of religious community. They lose and they get kicked out of it because they do not have that gift. Do not have that gift. So basically, on this simple idea that when you are able to, religion itself and a highly organized religion will continue to persist because they cannot challenge. Oh, somehow people will lose biases in this whole world, and people will not divide into multiple religions. We have to say that how does the diagnosis of talent just become? This is a precursor to any kind of argument that I make, that the idea of, even if you get a talent, it's going to be misjudged, because it's like, oh, you have this talent. It's humans making that positioning. It's not God coming down from heaven or something to tell you this is your calling in your life. It's the priest that is telling you and is deciding, oh, you want this positioning. One second. Yeah. So the priest is telling you how he interprets your talent, how he wants you to. This directly relates to the factor that religion getting more and more control in the positioning of society, how continuous propagation of politics and any societal choices that they make. Thank you.
Thank you for your fine speech. I am at the DPM to continue the case side. Government, here.
Yeah, hello everybody. Pramit this side, DPM. Can I please have the stopwatch instead of the timer? Yes, thank you. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and I will take POIs. Like you can raise your hand if you want to ask a POI. So I'll be beginning in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so the debate mostly in this today's debate focuses around people who are actually religious and who actually follow the religion. So most people in this world today follow religion, and religion, I think we can all agree, has an immense influence on how it shapes the way people view at the world around them. Okay, and when we talk about this God-given gift, which people have, there are two aspects to it. Firstly, religion may preach that everybody has a talent which is bestowed upon by God, and one should use that talent productively, which means that nobody in this world is like born. Everybody in this world has been given some gift, some talent by God, and one must delve deep into one's inner self in order to find out what that talent is. And nobody in this world is actually unproductive and not worthy, so they just need to find out what that special gift God has kept aside for them. And most people who practice religion are so influenced by these words that they will actually believe that they do have some special talents which needs to be brought out by them. Also, another thing which may also be done by this entire concept of religion preaching about gifts is that it may tell you that if you follow a certain particular virtuous lifestyle, and if you do some greater good for the society, which most religions do believe in doing greater good for society, if you do something good, then at the end of the road there is something good, there is some good gift that will be bestowed upon you by God. So two major things: one is that no, everybody is born with certain talents, and two is that if you lead a particular virtuous lifestyle, then at the end of the road there are gifts waiting for you. Okay, so let me take those one by one. So there are many people. So one of the major stakeholders in this is the people who feel insecure about themselves. These people may feel rejected by the society. They may be branded as talentless or maybe good at nothing, and their entire their like sense of self-worth may be very low. So what does religion do in this case? Religion comes in and tells you that, look, it emphasizes on the idea that, look, everybody has some God-given gifts, and you must delve into yourself, you must search for those gifts. And people do actually believe, and religious people who do actually believe in this religious word, they do actually like go forward and search within themselves to find out this talent. They feel an increased sense of responsibility then, that okay, God has given me this talent and I need to work my way to uh, bring it out, and they will be all the more motivated in finding their talents and potential. So like yeah, so people who are otherwise rejected by society and called talentless will know that I have some talent and I just need to work my way to find it out, right? And also, like most poor people, they talked about how, I will take that issue of capitalistic institutions later. So they talked about poor people. So many poor people are also religious and they find solace in the word of God. And if, and like most of the religions, they do actually talk about upliftment of poor people. And yeah, I think there's POI.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll
I had
continue.
a POI.
Yeah.
I had a POI. Is a placebo same as real medicine?
No, but placebo can provide temporary relief to a person. It may give a person clarity. So these people may be so oppressed, maybe like branded as like talentless, but this might give them clarity that, okay, I need to put aside whatever others are telling about this, because my God has not forsaken me. My God has given me certain talents, and I need to find, like, they will get more clarity as to what they need to work for. Okay, now these poor people will find solace. What I was talking about, the poor people will find solace in the words of God. And there are many poor people actually who do not work their way up. So like, I do agree that there are many institutional barriers to poor people in terms of education, health, and whatever. But poor people also, there are some poor people who do not work up to their full potential. These people will be all the more motivated to work, because they now think that uh, there has been some gift which they need to find out. They will go to many extents to discover these gifts, right? And now coming to capitalistic institutions. Okay, so when you talk about capitalistic institutions, they are already so strong that these rich people, they cannot be challenged anyway. So but in our paradigm, it is better, since rich people will now feel compelled to give back because they have been blessed. There will be a pressure on them that, okay, you have been blessed. And also what I was talking about, that virtuous lifestyle, and at the end you have some gifts waiting for you. This will emphasize on the practice of giving back. So the rich will now be compelled to give back to society and lead that virtuous lifestyle if they want to continue to hold on to that gift of theirs. So these rich people will now believe that, since God has given me this gift, I have to give back if I want to hold back to this gift of mine, right? And yeah, like just one second. Yeah, so what I was talking about is that people will be all the more motivated in finding their talents and potential. And yeah, so like the major thing is that the word of God is more convincing to them. So many people are who are religious, they may feel themselves lost, and the word of God will be actually more convincing to them to push them. So these institutions can use these words to actively push people in order to like do the for the greater good of the society. And also there may be certain checks from the government to like ensure that this entire system does not go haywire. Like they are not pushed to do something that's bad for society. And there can always be a check on that, that these religious institutions are doing something that does not harm the greater population in any kind of way. They are not spreading their own harmful propaganda that spreads hate against other institutions. There can always be checks and balances on that from the side of the government, right? And when it comes to like the capitalistic institutions, I already said that they like in today's paradigm, the capitalistic institutions already have so much power that their like religion coming into play will not really affect the way they exploit like currently exploit the poor. And whatever we have proposed will actually lead to this thing in which they want to lead a virtuous lifestyle to give back, and there will be an expectation from them to give back to the society because God has given them. Because all the religions actually, at their core tenets, they preach about giving back to society. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. I invite the dialogue to the case of side opposition. Here.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'll take a POI in the chat, preferably after the fifth minute. And please ask for one. Starting my speech in three, two, one. The first call out for government is that they still haven't decided what exactly this divine gift means, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take all of the definitions, tell you the most likely one, and tell you even if I'm to take all of the definitions, how we still win, right? I think the most likely definition in the first place is probably going to be what you're born with, right? Because know that a divine gift, as like it mentioned in the info slide, is something, a talent or a blessing given to you by God, right? Which probably means something that you think is inherent to you or something that God has already given you in the first place, right? I think when that's true, you know that in society already a lot of people are born a lot wealthier or with a lot more talents or things like that, right? I know that even though poor people do have lots of talents, the problem in status quo is that the diagnosis of the talent is extremely difficult, right? Because know that to diagnose any sort of educational talents or like any sort of like music or like art talents, etc., you necessarily need to be part of institutions or good educational institutions or have good coaches or professors and things like that, or good tests, right? I think in the status quo, when you probably have standardized tests and like below or like under par schooling and things like that, especially for poor people, a lot of talents or like things that you can cultivate in these kids necessarily go untouched, right? Which means that a lot of people, even though they might be capable of doing things, think that they don't necessarily have talents, right? The first problem there then is that because I am unable to identify these talents in the first place, I think that God hasn't given me anything, which necessarily makes me a lot better, right? What they tell you is that because I'll be motivated to bring out the talent through working hard and things like that. Note why this doesn't work. A lot of poor people throughout their lives, who don't have anything, keep working just to make ends meet, right? I know that they work day in and day out, but a lot of them do not get any sort of significant rewards or like divine gifts at the end of that, right? Which means that if you actively preach that if you keep working hard, you're necessarily the God is going to bless you with divine gifts, you keep getting discouraged as you keep going on because you're doing all these things in expectation of some return from God. And most of these people who follow these religions never really get that, right? Because know that people who care so much about getting these divine gifts are people who have nothing. Because rich people who already necessarily have more money or more fame or good social positionings don't depend on God to give them these I can't see the timer. Okay, they don't depend on people to they don't depend on like God to necessarily bless them with these things, right? So the people who are necessarily harmed by this is probably going to be people who want things from God, who feel like, oh, I'm going to get something to make my life better, right? And at the point where you don't get that, this is extremely harmful because Utkarsh has already told you how much solace you get from a community or like strength you get from religion to keep on going. And at the point where you don't get that, that is our first harm that they don't deal with at all, right? But two, they tell you that somehow rich people will be compelled to give back, right? I don't get any method for why that's true, and why that's not likely to happen is because it's rich people who are already in power of these religions, right? Which means all these narratives that go around in religion are probably funded by rich people simply because to propagate religion and things like that, you necessarily need large amounts of donation, etc., which do come from people in powers of position, etc., and even like high priests who sort of make interpretations, etc., have large like, are like from like higher castes or like have good social standing and things like that, which means that these narratives are already in favor of them controlling more power and things like that. So I'm unsure as to why rich people will somehow like suddenly be compelled to give back and things like that, right? All of this means that you never get the impact from that they try to prove of somehow poor people will have more motivation or work with more efficiency, especially when they see that they have been dealt a wrong card, and like this is just what God has given you in the first place, right? But then I think we have three arguments, right? I think the first one is on justifying social structures, right? Know that because like a simple intuition pump for this is just how the caste system worked for so many years, right? If I was like born into a warrior family, I was probably told that this is my blessing and this is what I'm probably going to be talented at because God has given me this, and this is what they used to justify to keep people in boxes and to reduce their choices to a significant level, right? And note what happened is because people simply bought that this is what God has dealt me with, they were like unlikely to question the social structures that actually kept them in those places for like years and years, right? All of this means that like if you actively preach this, people are unlikely to feel angry towards the social structures or towards the rich people who actually accumulate this power and tell you that God has given you this hand, right? All of this is extremely harmful. On the comparative, on like our side, when you don't actively preach that God, this is a gift given to you by God, you're probably more likely to question this because you don't take it as a word of God, right? Anything you think to be a word of God is probably something you equate to be true, right? When that's not going to happen on our side, you're more likely to see other human beings as equals. You're more likely to feel like you deserve equal rights, or more likely to feel like there's more that you can do about your own social standing, which is not something that can happen on government, right? But I think the second thing is on choice, right? Know that you have a lot less choice on their side when you think that you have been blessed with certain things by God, and that certain things are your calling and like something that you are made to do in life, right? And all of this means that you probably have a lot less choice that you can make than on our side, right? On the comparative, you probably can do more things on our side simply because you don't think that God has predestined like a choice for you or like a calling or a purpose for you, right? And this means that you probably expose yourself to like more agency or to more experiences that you can have, which probably means you can have a better life simply because you allow yourself to experience more things because you don't think you're going against God or you're doing something that you aren't meant to do and all those sorts of things, right? This and the worst case that happens here is like radical priests who often use these narratives to use people as vessels of like their religion, right? So know that like radical priests who want to expand their religion at faster rates and use violence to do this necessarily target poor people and young people who are necessarily naive and easily listen to these priests because they don't really have any sort of proper structural education, right? All of this means that they tell these young people or naive people that look, this is your calling in life. Your calling in life is to fight like holy wars or to like make sure that everyone listens to your God and things like that. All of this means that they use they can propagate radicalism extremely easy through narratives such as this and convince people that they're predestined to a certain calling in life, right? I know that when you're the difference here is on our side, sure, you still have radical priests, but at the point where you don't actively propagate that people have certain callings in life, you're simply more likely to question this calling. You're simply more likely to think you have more choice and therefore less likely to give into this radicalism in the first place and give these people more power, right? And I think the last impact then is just the demonization of poor. Just rich people in power who control all these religions use things like the caste system, etc., to be like, look, you don't have talents, you are in this position simply because God has dealt you this hand, so deal with it, right? We think because of all of this, on our side, you're just simply more likely to have better choices and think like you have more agency in your own life. And yeah, for all those reasons, Frank propose.
Thank you for your fine speech. I invite Kavit to communicate with side government. Here.
I'm Mayuk. I will be the government web for for this debate. For PIs, please keep them in the chat. I'll be starting in 10 seconds. Okay, so starting at a self timer of 3, 2, 1. Okay, so firstly, some characterization. Secondly, some rebuttals. Next, I'll identify the main clashes and read them. So, firstly, we have to parallel. We have to understand that most religions in the world are virtuous. That is, they identify that if you are virtuous in a life, whether in a previous life or this next life, you are going to get certain gifts. And that is the incentive for you to work hard in life. That is the incentive for you to get divine gifts in later in life. We also engage with the proposition that the opposition says that that the opposition says that you will get lives at the beginning of your life, we will engage with that. So what is the mechanism through which a certain person can get divine gifts in life, right? We from the government say that it is different in different religions, but we mostly say that it is because you work hard in this life, or it is because you have worked hard in this previous life, and that is why you are getting this divine gift in your next life. What the opposition has proposed is that you may get this divine gift because of some chance, and we'll also engage with that. So coming to some rebuttals. Firstly, they say that because of the concept of divine gift, rich people may feel that they have they have rich people may feel that they have gotten this gift, and therefore they cannot question the rich, right? But as we have told you, panel, that capitalistic institutions are incredibly strong in the first place. You cannot have a couple of poor people from Dharavi questioning Ambani, and therefore Ambani will say that, okay, I'm rich, that is my fault. I will give my gifts up. Right? That is not how the world works. Capitalistic institutions are incredibly strong, and you cannot question them in the first place. So, what is the solution? What is the solution and the impact that we give on your side? We tell you that rich people who are religious, because those are the only people that actually belong to this ambit of the debate, because we are talking about rich people who are religious, that is upon whom the divine gift is bestowed upon. They feel that they have to be virtuous because they have been given some gift from God. They want to feel closer to God, because though we are only talking about religious rich people in this debate, and so they will feel compelled to give back to the society. Now, how do we tackle their argument about rich people controlling narratives? Right. Notice, panel, that even if rich people can donate to temples, to religions and stuff like that, religion is mostly controlled by communities. And firstly, rich people are not mostly not involved in religion in the first place, and even if they are, religion is mostly controlled by communities which are mostly comprised of poor people. So even if rich people are donating to certain institutions, that is temples and mosques and churches like that, and those narratives within the temples and religious institutions are still controlled by poor people themselves, which form the larger community of the religion. Therefore, we don't really buy the argument of rich people will control narratives only because they donate. Secondly, they tell us that people will feel disillusioned from their religion. Understand, panel, that people on the whole understand that there is injustice in their lives, right? They understand that people are born poor, people are born rich, and so if they think that, why did I not get this gift, right? So now we delve into the two options. First, they can think that this is because of my previous life, because often I was not virtuous in my previous life, and therefore I have to be virtuous in my this life, so I may get the gift in my next life. That is better for us, because we as an impact, we are telling you that they will lead a better life, they will be virtuous in their life, and they will work hard, and that is how they get a gift in the next life. But what if this gift was randomly bestowed? Uh, so understand that the ambit of this debate is within religious people, and when both of these sides are find out that these are mostly poor, these are very unlikely to leave religion in the first place, because that is what they find solace in. They understand that this is the thing that gives me solace in my life, this is the thing that gives me peace in my life, and that is the opposition pushes is that if they feel disillusioned, they will leave the religion. That is incredibly unlikely, because they poor people who are marginalized, are disenfranchised, are very unlikely to leave religion. They are much more likely to work harder to equal the status. Lastly, let's talk about the narrative that the opposition tells us, that this is a placebo effect and it doesn't really matter in life, right? So notice, so panel, this debate is mostly about perception. It we both of the sides, we understand that it doesn't really matter if you are given a divine gift. You do not become a CEO just because God bestowed a gift upon you, right? But what matters is a priest coming up and telling me that because I have received this gift, I have to give back to the society. I am special, and therefore it is a response. I have some responsibility upon myself to better society, to give back to society, and be the best version of myself to give back to society. And even people who are not bestowed this gift, and that is, they are not told by some priest, not told by some people that they are have not receive this gift. Firstly, they can be virtuous in this life if they think that this gift will be given to them in the next life, and even if they, if this gift is bestowed randomly, they poor people, as we said, are very unlikely to leave religion. Right. So, what is the clashes we identify in this debate? Firstly, we identify that the poor people are the most vulnerable in this debate, and this perception, this the cause of motivation in this motivation is the better on our side of the house. Why is that so? Because uh, if you have to work hard, there are different perspectives in this, but suppose you get gifts because you have worked hard, you have to work hard, therefore you better yourself in this life. And when the opposition comes and tells us that even if poor people work hard, they're not going to get to a very high level, understand that even if they get to some, suppose you are the son of a farmer, you crack some government job, that is still a considerable progress for you in your life. You don't become a CEO of Amazon or something like that, but that is still a considerable solution for you. Whereas on their side of the house, they don't get that in the first place because they don't have any the incentive that we have on the side to work hard in their life. They work hard in their life. Secondly, on the clash of do people in power give back, we have proved to you why people in power give back, because they see it as a responsibility upon themselves. They see that it is their job, and on their side of the house, capitalist institution is strong. They do not have any moral responsibility, and that is why they don't give back. That is why this we take this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for your fine speech. I invite opportunity to conduct the case beside opposition. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Hi, am I audible? Also, can someone please mute the timer? Yeah, can
Yeah,
you
loud
please?
and clear.
Great, thank you so much. Can you also please make that into a stopwatch, Osi? Just click stopwatch. Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, if I break off at any point, please let my teammates know. Um, Starting speech in three, two, one. I want to be very clear. Things like leading virtuous lifestyles, things like working hard in society, these are going to happen anyway because religion preaches them anyway, independent of actively preaching whether or not you have a divine gift. What happens when you actively preach, if you have a uh, preach the concept of divine gift, is that you create a difference between people. You create a difference between people who have this gift, whereas they probably have more talent than you. If they don't have talent, they probably have more money than you, and they have this money because God wills it so. What this ends up creating is this unquestionable power around this person, right? That you can't really question what makes them so powerful or what makes them so great, because God has necessarily wanted that to happen. I think people want to work hard in society anyways because they need an incentive to go ahead and get a job for themselves. They need to sustain themselves. So I don't really so none of what government says is particularly exclusive. But what are the ideas on opposition that government doesn't necessarily engage with, right? First is how exactly societal call out works. They try to engage with this, but the way that they do this is so surface level, right? What they tell you is that people don't call out social structures because like poor people in Dharavi cannot call out Ambani. I think I don't really see how Gov makes this better. Notice, I think societal call out works through protests. It works through getting media attention to lack of resources that these poor people have. Notice now that if poor people themselves think that the reason that they are poor is not because government isn't including them, not because they have systemic barriers, but because their God, someone that they follow, someone that they listen, someone that they regularly devote time to, wills it so, they will never really have an incentive to want to protest in the first place. What this necessarily means is that people themselves become very, very self-deprecatory about their own circumstances. What is the implication of this? It's at first they think that they will never get much more in life, which means that their motivation to do better for themselves, their motivation to live to their utmost potential dies down. But secondly, they also tell their own kids about this, that they think that this life isn't something that God wants for them, and this is something that they pass down to their kids. So I think it becomes generational how people think about their circumstances and are like become more and more pessimistic about the change that can happen around them. Dia talks to you also about how this necessarily manifests in the worst ways, right? When she talks to you about terrorism, what does Dia tell you, right? I think that radicalism uniquely becomes a worse narrative when you have concept of divine gift preached. What would this look like? I think in society, poor people are tremendously vulnerable, and they have nothing else taking care of them except priests that they listen to and except their own religion. Now their religion is telling them that look, you don't have any special blessing, you weren't rich, you weren't like you can't donate, but the only way that you can give back to God and the only saving grace that you have for God is to fight for God, is to go on these holy wars, is to go ahead and execute exactly what God wishes out of you. Insofar as that is true, I think what happens is that radical priests are able to embolden the worst forms of religion and embolden the worst forms of religious terrorism through by instrumentalizing these poor people. I think what ends up happening then is that this creates a worse divide in society. This creates a worse divide, making religion at the center as a very divisive organization. But the third thing that we I want to note is why exactly this empowers rich people, right? Um, they don't really respond to the idea about why exactly rich people now become the controllers of the narrative of this narrative of divine gift, right? What my teammates also tell you is that rich people right now in society want to keep people around them in the dark and want to keep people around them ignorant about why how exactly rich people became rich or why exactly social structures prefer the rich people to retain rich. This can be like the lack of an inheritance tax. This can be lack of like capital gains tax, etc., and other such structural reasons for why rich people continue to remain rich. Right? You don't want to get attention to these societal reasons, so you create these narratives, or so you manufacture you like perpetuate these narratives that God is the one who wills you to continue to be rich. Insofar as that is true, what this necessarily creates is a worse divide between people who have lots of resources, people who have lots of money, and people who don't have money, right? But more importantly, the closer impacts of this is that rich people continue to remain rich, but also they continue to get away with the idea that we are rich not because we are free to evade taxes, or we don't have to give back to society, but because um, like God supports us and all that stuff, right? Before I move on, I'll take a POI. If not, okay. What are the implications of not being able to call out societal structures and like not having any sort of motivation to want to do better for yourself? First, it's that more poor people think that there's nothing out there in the world for them to go ahead and accomplish, right? As a result of which, they never really want to try to get better things. They never really want to like they like succumb to their circumstances, right? But secondly, I also think that you aren't able to ever create a counter narrative which is as powerful, right? Because now you've created an unquestionable narrative around a divine gift being so strong because it's literally the word of God. You aren't really able to ever like pull poor people back, or you aren't being able to create like a counter narrative that tells poor people that no, there's actually things that are better for them. As a result of which, you disempower the words of what social movements are actually trying to do, because poor people being more proximate to religion and being more proximate to things that religion teaches them aren't ever going to look at what this movement is trying to teach them, right? um Third, I think this also creates like a narrative around demonization of poor, right? About how exactly people never really want to give back to poor, people never really want to vote for for situations that uplift the poor, because they think that the poor people have done something to deserve their condition, because God otherwise would have never made them poor. God otherwise would have never like created diseases and other such things, right? I think multiple such narratives necessarily perpetuate that keep people in their own place, that actually even proliferate terrorism. So for all of those reasons, proud to oppose.
Thank you for your fine speech. I invite our reply to close the case for side opposition. Here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Utkarsh. I will be going as top reply. I will begin my 1 second. Okay. Okay, my name is Utkarsh. I will begin my speech in three, two, one. First of all, I think government does not have a certain definition of what this defined gift is. They keep on contradicting in each regular speeches and how many people have this gift, how many people can utilize this gift to reach the certain amount of whatever the religious community wants him to. They do not contest any kind of situation how this working how it even manifests. Like we already call them out on how if I am a poor person and I do not have the certain facilities to even upward to have upward mobility because of the idea that I'm, for example, if I'm a factory worker and I'm cleaning the factories or whatever, and I have to work 18 hours to feed my family, is this working hard to certain amount of reach certain amount of gift? Is this going to be some kind of divine gift that God will come down from heaven and give me this talent that I will become a certain good musician or something? This is completely ambiguous on their whole case. We tell you that how religious communities will define it as, how they will misuse it, how they want to create this hierarchy in this situation. This working hard is the only mechanism that they want to say that this metric will tell you what gift you have. This motivation is that they say, oh, you will get this gift if you are a good student, you will continue to be a good student because God told you so. This completely gets removed when you don't tell how the metrics get defined. If I'm a good student, what is the metric of, is it standardized test that the religious people are taking SATs or something to tell you how you are, or is it any kind of situation that they are telling you? So our whole case stands straight. There's no challenging from their side. Are still three arguments on our side that they do not have a rebuttal to. First of all, is choices, how religion itself curtails your choices in the status quo, and how in that new world, with this inclusion of the provision of a divine gift and how religion itself controls it, it certainly reduces it to a certain level that religion tells you at a certain age, and whatever age that is, that was Gov's whole idea that they want to have to characterize. So you are reducing the experience that you have. You do not have the idea of what you are human you are. You have just been made and given this gift for the community as a whole, and you do not even know if you're good enough or even if you have a social standing to reach that level of success that you want to be able to. Second of all, radicalism. I think this is like a complete case idea that they do not have a rebuttal to. They cannot, because of the idea that when they say that itself that people, religious priests are controlled by a large amount of people who give them capital, who give them money and want them to control. If this is a priest is not a good person, somehow this person will continue to produce the idea that your gift is to go and do terrorism, kill some people because you're propagating the idea of your own God. This creates more conflict in this new world where people won't be able to have any kind of cohesion. Last of all is the idea of the whole capitalism narrative. They say that capitalism cannot be challenged. Capitalism can be challenged. There are revolutions around you. There are people who do strikes, they do protests, they get more benefits from their workers, they get more corporate power, they get more power just because they have a call out. When you are told and you are entrenched in this religion from a certain period of life, you're a 10-year and you're told that you can be only a shoe cleaner or whatever because of whatever acceptance that you have, that through caste system or whatever, that the rich people want to keep this hierarchy. You won't have a social call out, you won't have this kind of provision or motivation to get better in your life because you are told you are destined for this and God told you so. Why people do not question God is directly the reason why rich people will use this narrative, because they do want this to keep kept ambiguous how they got rich by privatization and exploitation of the weak. So through this process rich poor people get more exploited, keep on getting poorer, and rich people keep on getting richer and get more control through the process of religion, getting more control on society, the state, the election, the religion as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. I invite Gabir to close the debate. Here.
Yeah, hello. I'll be starting my speech in three, two, one. Okay, so first off, opposition clearly fails to like get what our definition of the gift was when we clearly mentioned that the gift may come in two forms. It's either like the first one, like the gift will come in two forms. The first one is that everybody is born with an innate talent that God has bestowed upon them, and they need to search within their souls and whatever to find that talent and work upon it. That is the first kind, and the second thing is that the religion will actively preach that if you lead a certain virtuous lifestyle, then some form of gift may come to you, which may be like there are many different kinds of gifts which will come you, which may be like in terms of social standing, in terms of power, or many other things. So these are the two main types of gifts that may come. So coming to the first one, they completely fail to address how on our side of the paradigm how people with low self-worth, when we talk extensively about how this will actually help out people with low self-worth, the first gift that is bestowed, uh, it will help people in finding what their true potential is, how it will actively push the workforce towards more productivity. They completely fail to address that. And instead, what they decide to do is drive the entire debate about rich and poor. Well, their view of the world is extremely linear, their view of religion, and they see religion as something which is controlled solely by the rich, which is like dictated by the rich just because rich are funding it. And they completely discount the fact that throughout history and even in today's world, uh, like uh, all religions have actively preached about how the poor are also very close to God, and how in today's paradigm the poor people also make up a large chunk of the religion, and their worldview that it is the rich people who are solely controlling the religion is extremely flawed, and hence all of their arguments about how the rich people will divert it towards themselves is not right. And if we considered like the religious rich people, even the religious rich people are driven, like if they do actually believe in God, they are driven by this sense of what is right and what is wrong. And if religion comes in and tells them that like this that you have been given a gift, and if you do not act upon it, then this gift may be taken away from you, then like they will be incentivized to actually work, do good for the society. They completely discount all of this that we have been saying throughout, and instead they have this like very linear worldview of how like religion works. And yeah, and in our paradigm we are able to provide you a positive delta, a positive reinforcement in how people with low self-worth and low self-esteem can view themselves, in how people who in rich people who are religious can actually actively work for the betterment of the society, and like things like that we have talked about. However, in their paradigm, they also come up with the case about terrorism very late into their speeches, which does not give us much like chance to act to like you do not need to preach about this divine gift in order to make a person convert a person into a terrorist. Religions can always do that through other methods. Brainwashing is not only limited to talking to people about you have this gift. You can preach about this greater purpose in life through various other methods, which actually happens. And like it is the government's duty to actually bring, and we as the government say that it is like the checks and measurement will be from the government side to ensure that such terrorism or religious views which negatively affect other communities will not take place. And also like they bring it very late. The a major characterization of this comes in their whip speech, which does not really give us any chance to rebut it in any way. So yeah, all in all, I think that whatever case that we provided, it has a pretty like positive delta, positive edge on our side, in which we talk about how like the poor people may find like the poor people may actually find solace in the who actually find solace in the word of God may actually be motivated more, in which the people who have low self-esteem will be will be very greatly positively affected by this. And yeah, all in all, because of all these reasons, I'm pretty confident that we have won this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for this lovely debate. I think we have about 10 minutes of deliberation. Rana, should we leave the room and I go to Discord?
Yeah, I think we should leave and we should deliberate in the deliberation on Discord.
Cool. All right. We'll be back in about 10 minutes, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll join you in deliberation.
Hi, just filling the ballots. What was Gov's veto?
Hi, it was me, Pramit.
No, no. What was your veto in motion ranking? Like, what did you veto?
Acha, what did we veto? 1 second.
Government
The
veto to
second motion.
Uh,
Motion two,
we,
which is the narrative of like difficulties in life are tests of God, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And op veto was the motion three.
Operator was 3.
Okay, cool. Just confirming speaker orders once. Like Gov PM was Vishal, DPM was Pramit, Gov Whip was 1 second, I can't find. Was it Mayuk?
yeah,
Is it? Okay. And reply was Pramit again, right?
yeah.
Okay. And op was LO was Utkarsh, DLO was Dia, op whip was Snigdha, and reply was Utkarsh again. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you
So,
are.
thank you. I am a trainee judge for this particular debate, and I believe the verdict is clear among both the judges. We have unanimously decided that op takes the debate. So I'll be starting with my OA. So the general feedback regarding the debate is it was an above average debate, obviously, and the engagement from both the sides was quite above average as well. However, the clash analysis that I have done is I have literally first let me give what the cases that both the both the gov and op comes up with. So I believe in the PM speech, it comes up with the idea of how religion shapes ideology and how if a particular person has a particular talent and the religious community, if he will be perceived as a role model and he will have a certain sense of responsibility and it will be termed as a safeguard against evil and they will have an obligation to pay back to the society. However, the op comes up with a very detailed case methodology of how they do a little bit of recharacterization and they come up with the method of social political capital and how higher positioning essentially towards upward mobility and how the societal barriers in all reduce their happiness, and then they come up with a very structured method of giving three impacts that this causes which are awful in nature. So this was the entire summary of both the cases that I have on both the sides. So let me come with the clash analysis. So the first clash analysis that I have with me is talent versus higher positioning, and I believe that op takes this clash unanimously because I believe that the material that I get from the gov is since these people have a divine talent, they will work hard, and since they will work hard, they will be able to achieve some kind of a talent. But I don't know how will they recognize and how if priest tells them that they have this particular talent uh, do th- I don't know in any like if any confessions or if any priest like priests have that kind of a knowledge to recognize talent and tell them to work hard. I believe that no priest comes up and tells any people like, oh, this is the case and this is what happens, etc., etc. However, what op comes up and tells me is there are justified social structures that are built on this particular phenomena of divine talent. Like they mentioned the caste system, so I believe that's a very important point and I have credited it adequately, since the functioning of caste system has essentially functioned on the basis of karma, and I believe this has been reiterated in the gov speech again and again that since they have done something in their previous life they will lead a virtuous life. But what this essentially does is it has this oppressive caste system work eons and eons and ages. So this happens through the method of divine, and what gov comes up with this, oh, they will have an incentive to work hard and there is no incentive at all. However, again as stated by DLO, that the talent as blessing is given as a gift, and this there's an incentive to live virtuously as every religion preaches it. So there is divine talent doesn't in itself has a uniqueness of this particular sense. And then again there's a lot more choice, and I again agree that in the ops paradigm there's a lot more choice. Like they can challenge this particular government and they can feel much more like they won't be just limited to their sense. And again this particular that because of the talent, because they work hard, but there was a specific argument from the op which stated that the poor people who work really really hard but are not able to reach that level of the talent, and then they really think of that, oh, I'm still working, and the people who are mostly affiliated with religion, they will feel they are the harm most. And I again buy this argument because of the reason, because this is what really happens. Like working hard in itself doesn't guarantee that you will reach certain level. However, there's a guarantee in social structures, socio-political structures, to provide ample opportunities. And what op is also able to convince me that how this propagation actually doesn't lead to upward social mobility, rather it creates a clear hierarchy. And again, there's a point of demonization of poor that comes in, like how the radicalization turns it again has been credited by me. So the first clash of talent versus higher positioning is being duly credited by me to op. Again, the second is of the capitalistic nature of this whole has been adequately discussed in it. And this was one argument from the side gov, that capitalistic structures cannot be challenged. And I don't really buy this argument, because as stated by op, though little, but if you look at the global scenario, if you look at Chinese, Japanese, African, North American, European or Indian experiences, there has been challenge to any imperialistic society, either from within or from the populace. It has been reincarnated. That is the cycle. Chad, in the meanwhile, can you fill the palette? Okay, so it has been reiterated. So again, this clash. Okay, so I believe again this clash goes with the side op, and then there was a third clash, and the final clash that I have worked upon is working of religion as a whole. Now I duly credit the PM, because in the start he gave me really good characterization of how religion really works, and how religious community members are affiliated to the society, etc, etc. And it was duly characterized, but I am afraid that the characterization of how this particular notion of divine gift ascribed to this particular religion works in. However, side op was able to convince me sufficiently as to how this particular divine notion works in this scenario, and how the poor people, or a large section of the society, is able to keep them under their knees through the ages of this particular narrative. And that's the reason the third clash also goes with the side op. So any questions as for now?
No questions from side, Gov. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe this is the particular way. So a brief speaker wise feedback. So PM did a really good job of characterizing the religion, but I believe if there was one particular uh, argument that has been put forward by the DPM of giving the two aspects, like how the talent will be manifested. I would have really liked if Gov would have, like PM would have come up with that kind of characterization initially. It would have really, I believe, set a good stage for you to further your arguments. This coming in DPM, I believe there was not much fleshing that had been done on the two aspects point that have come in the DPM speech. So even PM did a good job, but I believe there was a missing characterization and mechanization. DPM also does a good job of coming up with the two aspects and branding it. But there was this is continuously seen in all the speeches, that there is no uh, yeah, no worries. I'm wrapping up in 1 minute. So this is the fact, and again, Op does a good job of characterizing as well. That's it. So I'm wrapping up my OA. If there are no questions, I will ask the chair to join the debate. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Hello? Yeah. Just
Can you
checking
hear
if
me?
you have filled the ballot.
Yeah, I did a start of declaration itself. It's already been filled long back.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Just confirming that both Gov and Op are here.
Gav is here.
Officer.
Cool. And Op. Hello.
Opposite.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. All right. Just give me a few seconds. All right. Hi guys. My name is Samuel. I was chair for today's debate. Just general structure of the OA will look like this. I'll start with the verdict, some general comments, and then provide the justification for why the verdict was the way it was. Starting in three, two, one. All right. The verdict is that the motion falls and that Op takes this debate. This is a unanimous verdict with both me and the trainee. A few general comments before I get into the justification. I think this debate could have benefited if there was one single definition that stood through the entirety of the debate, as opposed to sometimes a lack of clarity as to what the exact definition of what we're debating about was. But secondly, that this is a THP motion, which means that Gauss' burden is to provide a counterfactual and paint a picture of a world and what would look like where this thing existed from the beginning of time, and then why that world was likely to be better off than status quo. And thirdly, then I think in terms of just impacting and weighing, I think while analysis was existing in this debate, just more clearer impacting and weighing would have helped make this debate a bit more clearer as to why exactly the impact stood and why they weighed out of one another. With that, let's get into the debate and why opt to this debate. Firstly, in the beginning of the debate, what do we get from SideGov? So PM comes and says that look, religion is a part of everyday life and has like legitimacy and people buy into it. But that at the point in time when you have this calling or purpose in life, you have this positive reinforcement that exists, and so then you're likely to then feel that this gift that you've been given is useful to you, and therefore then you need to use it to achieve your goal. And so then PM posits that at the point in time wherein this belief exists among people because religions preach it to the people, then essentially what happens is that you work harder and you achieve like more things and allows you to like be a role model to society and stuff like that. What then does op tell us at LO says that look, this thing could be a talent or a blessing, but the implication of this preaching is that the likely belief then that forms is that what effort you put in doesn't matter as much because God has given you this talent or this blessing, and therefore then it's essentially some form of luck that's been assigned to you based on maybe things like your past life or some other arbitrary factors. And so then essentially you're likely to believe that luck then is the most important factor in your life that determines the outcomes of your life. But furthermore, that if that you as say a poor person or a vulnerable person, then likely believe that yes, you deserve this position that you have because essentially from some random act of God, you are then put into the position. But furthermore, then is that essentially they get into the structure and the hierarchy of religion. I talk about how religion exists as a hierarchy, and what essentially happens is that social call-out mechanisms tend to be far worse on side government. The reason that they give for this is that because of how essentially rich people tend to be rich because of things like societal barriers and privileges and essentially the ability to be able to exploit poor people in multiple populations, and that allows them to essentially get wealth and accumulate wealth and preserve that wealth. Then it's in the interest of rich people to ensure that other people are ignorant of the fact that privilege is what leads to them being wealthy, and therefore then they don't want to be called out. And so at the point in time wherein religion now teaches people that yes, this is a talent, this talent or blessing has been given to you by God, you then essentially are the incentives of the rich align with this preaching, and therefore then they are incentivized to keep this in place because then it lessens the possibility of them being questioned by people lower down the socioeconomic ladder, and therefore then these people see it as a blessing from God and maybe assign virtuosity to these rich people because they maybe think that oh yeah, they lived well in their past life and therefore then have been blessed in the current life, as opposed to saying like things like they're privileged right now and we should be questioning these mechanisms of privilege and therefore then working to make society more equitable. Gov's response is simple. They say that look, you get certain like religions preach that you get like certain gifts at the end of the road, wherein if you do good deeds, you then therefore then get benefits, and so then what the outcome of this is that people who are privileged and are rich are likely them to want to do good and give back to society simply because they believe that they believe in some sort of moral desert at the end of their lives, and therefore then they're incentivized to give back so that they have a good afterlife and essentially get some sort of reward from the religion that they believe in. But furthermore, then that the second input that we get from Gov at DPM is that oftentimes poor people don't work up to their full potential, and so Gov's response over here is mitigating at best, because they say that even if the social barriers exist, it's the poor people who don't work that hard, and therefore then at least if they believe that this talent or blessing exists, they're then likely to at least now believe that they should work hard, and therefore then work harder. And then finally, that they find solace in the way of God. What does DLO tell us? They say that even if this belief does exist, the diagnosis of talent itself is an issue, which means that even if like you believe that you may have talent, finding this talent itself is so difficult that the likelihood of you being able to find it and then work for it and then become good at it is difficult, especially if you're a poor or vulnerable person and don't have access to the resources and the capacity to be able to even find this talent and then work towards it. But furthermore, you're likely to feel discouraged, because oftentimes when you do believe you're talented, or say you have some sort of blessings, but then because of the circumstances that you're born in, and how like you may be lower down the socioeconomic ladder, the results that you do get will often be in contrast to say the beliefs that you do have, and so then you get discouraged because you believe that actually, oh, I don't have these talents or beliefs, and therefore then the cycle of discouragement is starting to build up over time. But furthermore, oftentimes the people who have nothing are the ones who care the most about getting something out of it, and therefore then but also then the fact is this, that they because that they had nothing, it's very difficult for them to get these things which they do want, and therefore then this belief that yes, this talent or blessings are there makes it even more harder for them to be able to access these benefits, and therefore then you just believe that you have the wrong cards, and God gave you a bad hand at life, and therefore then things, and then the intuition pump that they push things like the caste system, where essentially this belief that you've been born into the system means that you're unable to try and change it, and so then therefore you merely accept your fate, and essentially like are doomed to having a worse sort of life. But then they attack the best case of a government, where even if you do have a good hand, the fact that you have been given this so-called talent or blessing that society assigns to you, and the nuance here that they push is that it's not God who's assigning this thing to you, like God isn't coming on and telling this, but rather that essentially it's society that tells you that yes, this is your talent or your blessing, which then means that once you've been boxed into this position, you then are likely to believe that essentially that you should only go and fulfill this path, and so then the likelihood of you having multiple choices that you can pick from, and the amount of agency that you have as a person in society is far reduced. So even if your talent or blessing does exist, and you aren't say as poor or vulnerable, you're still likely to have just far lesser choice or agency on government's paradigm, and therefore then be much weaker. The final push from government is that you're far more likely to have radicals on that government, simply because it's oftentimes like poor people who believe that they have no other, but like who believe that their lack of meaning in life means that then they need to go and say buy into things like radicalism in religion, and that will also say radicalist preachers to then be able to exploit these people and then send them on things like holy wars, which essentially just cause like large scale harms to society. What then is Gov's final responses to this? Gov says that look, being virtuous would essentially give you certain gifts in afterlife. But furthermore, things like capitalist institutions are incredibly strong. The issue over here is that considering it's a THP motion, you have to prove by the strength of capitalist institutions is likely to exist on your paradigm as well, simply because it's a different world. And you have to prove why these institutions are asymmetric on your side and are likely to have been changed by this preaching and the motion as a whole. But furthermore, I think Gov's main push is that you have a compulsion to give back if you're a rich person, and the solace that you find in your life will be provided by religion. The issue over here is that there's a lack of analysis and mechanization as to why this incentive to give back is going to outweigh essentially any sort of like incentives you have to preserve your wealth and to ensure that to ensure that society doesn't call you out and weaken your standing as a rich person. But furthermore, then further dismantles Govs by saying that look, things like virtuosity and having like a moral desert at the end of your life is symmetric across both sides, because you can independently teach it as this detached from the teaching of what is exclusive on government side of essentially you being you having talents or blessings from God. Which means that the benefits that government claims in terms of like virtuosity and like a moral desert are inexclusive and exist even on opposition side. But furthermore, that in things like access to systemic barriers and access to resources is limited exclusively on government side, because essentially the impact of that is that you on government side you believe that all parts of God's plan, but on the opposite side, you believe that that's a bit very structured, and therefore more likely to change it. But furthermore, then I think Opip does like a good job of weighing how things like radicalism and especially rich people like protecting power, and then the greater effects of inequality, because actually of how once you protected your privilege and you have no mechanism of call out, you're then likely to have a widening gap between the rich and the poor, and inequality existing and growing over time. And so then rich people get away not only morally but also like in terms of tangible actual wealth, and this divide only gets greater, only gets more and more over time. And so then like ops successfully able to prove their harms in terms of in terms of like radicalism or like inequality and lack of call out, and are able to weigh over like Gov's harms, which aren't as proven because of a lack of analysis, but also then because of like better impacting on opposition. For all these reasons, I give the win to side opposition. Thank you. Any questions? Gov first.
No questions, thank you.
Opposition. Okay.
No questions. Can we just get some personal feedback?
Sure. Do you want it on call or would you want to like reach out afterwards? Up to you all.
Anything is fine. If you can give it now, that would be great.
Sure. Cool. You're Dia, right? Give me one sec. Cool. So you were DLO, and so here's all right. So let's pull up my notes. Give me one second. All right. So I did let her speech because I think you did a strong job of attacking Love's case at their strongest. I don't think you shied away from tackling the strongest burdens, and you went for the difficult to attack parts. And I think firstly your rebuttal of things like diagnosis of talent itself is an issue was quite strong, simply because you were able to, as opposed to just attacking the surface level argument of essentially how talent can be found or can't be found, you went to the root cause of the capacity of talent not being found itself was quite was quite unlikely for someone who say was off on the social economic ladder. But secondly, then I think your arguments about how choice and agency, and secondly like radicalism, were new arguments that you did quite well. So like on DLO, I think the three main things that I try to do is usually extending, rebutting, and rebuilding. I think your rebuttals were quite solid. And then secondly, in terms of like new extensions, wherein you gave the arguments of like choice and in terms of like radicalism, were completely new arguments that like made opposition's job much harder in terms of having to attack like multiple fronts from your case. In terms of like points of improvement, I'd say that essentially there were certain parts of your speech where you were a bit inefficient. So, for example, in the parts about the caste system argument and how people may feel that you've been given, say, a bad hand by God. I think you spent more time as proving it than you needed to do. Wherein, say, in the first 30 seconds or so itself, I think you proved quite sufficiently why people were likely to behave the way that they did when they believed this idea. But then you spent an additional maybe around 30 seconds or so, if not more, on this, which didn't add more levels of analysis, but rather was just proving the same point again and again. So I think just in terms of efficiency, knowing when you've proved a point and knowing when to move on would allow you to just cover more matter and give more time for things like radicalism um, or say, for example, the choice argument, which Snigdha then like expanded upon in her speech. So I think point number one would be that if you're more efficient, that allows you to then compress more analysis in more amounts of time. But then secondly, as a DLO, then you can then do a bit of impacting and weighing. Then you can go into the actual impact of why this choice is so important or why radicalism is so harmful, wherein you talk about the tangible impacts that you face. Like, for example, you having more choice gives you more options in life, and these options then lead you to say maybe trying out more things in life, and that gives you more fulfillment. And then why the fulfillment is so important. Or for example, why radicalism is so harmful is because even a few people who buy into these things like holy wars are able to cause such large scale damage and change, and why that damage is so harmful to society as a whole. So just explaining more as to why these impacts are so like um, large in terms of magnitude or scale or maybe likelihood or frequency, or any other like metric that you want to go into, but essentially explaining the actual tangible visceral impacts that you're pursuing on side opposition, and then using that to weigh against side government would probably like make the debate much more like you'd probably win at DLO instead of having to win at whip. But secondly, in terms of just analysis, like oftentimes one of the good ways to improve efficiency and rate of analysis is like, say, for example, if you're doing a drill during practice and you have, say, an argument that you explain in 5 minutes, then try to explain the same argument in 4 minutes, then 3, and then 2, and then 1 minute without losing the meaning and the strength of the argument would probably help you improve efficiency over time. So Yeah, just to summarize, and this isn't glaring holes in it. It was just feedback that I could maybe say to improve like by 10-20%, which is improving efficiency of analysis and then being able to do more impacting and weighing at the end of your speech. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I
No
give
worries.
feedback also? Also, hello.
Sure. Yep. Give me one sec. Right, Utkarsh. I think you started out quite strong when you said things like you're likely to believe that effort won't matter as much, and then luck is more likely to be the dominant belief system in this paradigm. But I think going a bit deeper into, okay, so at the point in time wherein I don't believe in effort, what are the likely outcomes of that? And just going a bit deeper into the internal monologue that people will have when they receive this preaching. So it was quite intuitive, but maybe in a more difficult debate wherein Gov pushes more strongly, you then have to essentially do a bit more legwork in terms of talking about what's internal monologue exactly look like and why then you're likely to believe in terms of like luck being the dominant narrative as opposed to effort. But then secondly, I think you did a good job talking about how like religion functions as a hierarchical position. The only link I could see that could be strengthened further was talking about how religion tends to go hand in hand with, say, capitalistic forces and the rich, because oftentimes the rich are the ones who are donating to religion, who are keeping them well funded, helping them like build things like churches, temples, mosques, whatever. And and so religion is dependent on the rich for essentially propagating their religion. And so uh, and that's why then they're ready to like say go hand in hand with protecting the interests of the rich and ensuring that this narrative meshes them with their narrative. So I think you did a pretty solid job of like talking about the hierarchy of religion, but just connecting that to capitalistic society as a whole and why the rich and religion go hand in hand, which just further make your case much more stronger. And thirdly, then finally, in terms of towards the end of your speech, where you spoke about how like you use religion to control people and how essentially like demotivation and like humans are the ones who decide um, these values. I think it's going a bit deeper into how society tends to assign values to things that they find like so how society tends to like assign virtues to things that they find valuable, and then going deeper into the implications of why essentially if this preaching was exist if this preaching existed, then essentially society would like value and like price certain things more than others, and make that more virtuous, and therefore then people would have an additional maybe negative incentive towards doing only like certain things that society wants them to do, as opposed to say doing things which they want to do. And therefore then that causes like again a lack of choice and agency, which I think Dia does cover in her speech. But considering your point was heading in that direction, I think if you were able to like go a bit deeper into that, that will again just like help evolve your case a bit faster in LO itself. But otherwise, I mean, solid speech overall. Yep, no other feedback.
Thank
If
you.
any of that didn't make sense, like please ask questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we ask
Cool.
feedback for government web if that's okay?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So at GovWeb, I think with government side as a whole, just knowing the motion type would have made your case much stronger. As in, this is a THP motion, so your job is to talk about what a counterfactual is. So you have to think about what happens in a world where this narrative was always being preached by religion, and what this world looks like. And so this in a THP motion, you've got a lot of fiat as government to paint a picture of a world that suits your needs, in the sense that you can paint a picture of a world wherein this has changed a lot of things, wherein the nature of society itself has changed, as long as they're able to explain why these changes are likely to have happened in this world. So using the fiat that you have as government to try and paint the picture of this world and talk about why this world looks like the way it is would be like point number one. But secondly, just being more comparative and talking about why this world is better than status quo is important, because while you attacked opposition for certain arguments and then you said that this is likely to happen on our side, because you didn't have a cohesive world that you could use to compare as a whole to side opposition's world, it becomes more difficult for you to win as government. But then thirdly, I think at WIP, what your goal should be to do something which I think similar to what Sridhar did, wherein you figure out what the main points of contention are in this debate. So your main points of contention were A, how are poor people better off? B, like how is privilege going to be handled on your side? C, things like solace. And so find the areas where you and opposition disagree, and then A, rebuild the material that has been broken down on your side, rebut the material that has been broken on that stands on their side, and then finally like weigh on that clash as to why your material versus their material, even if their material is still true after your rebuttals, why you then still have better impacts on your side than theirs. And so then what you should be doing is figuring out these areas of disagreement, firstly positioning which area of disagreement is the most important to win this debate, and ensuring that you win that area of disagreement. And then the other ones maybe that you can't win, at least making it a wash, so that even if op is quite strong on that clash, you at least equal them in the amount of like work that's been done, and so the clash is irrelevant. And then the clash that's easy for you to win is more important, and then you do win that clash. So firstly, like prioritize your clashes, and then work on winning the ones that are the most important, and the ones that you can't win, at least like work on mitigating it and making the clash irrelevant. That would be like how I structure my web speech. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So if we are building a counterfactual for opposition, like what goal should we have built?
So I haven't thought of the Gov case over here, but essentially just talking about
I haven't
so
gov. Uh,
yeah. So I haven't thought of the Gov case for this, but if I would like off the top of my head think of a case, it would probably be one where so if religions constantly preach like this concept of the divine gift, what does the world likely to look like? It looks like maybe on Gov, religious preachers like constantly telling people that see, all of you are blessed with your own individual gifts and talents, and so society is built around this. Wherein, if everyone believes that they have a unique talent or gift, then maybe most people pursue their like spend their lives pursuing the finding of this talent or gift, and so then society starts being built around this. Wherein you have like maybe schools, like for example teaching like constantly like exposing people to a variety of skills and knowledge to help them find where their talents lie, or like jobs for example being catered to helping people like use their talents in the best way possible. And so if everyone believes that they have a certain talent or like a certain good fortune, then their life is spent like finding out what it is and then be pursuing making use of this thing. And then the mechanism that you can give over here is that if your religion constantly preaches that you have these talents and like these things, then it's likely that the religion also teaches you that you should be using this talent because God has given you this talent. And so then if people believe that this talent of theirs has to be used, then because of how intrinsic religion is to their belief system, they're likely to then spend their lives pursuing this talent and belief. And then the impact you can push is like how fulfilled people's lives will be, because if you spend your life pursuing something like as meaningful as like what you are good at, you're likely to achieve self-actualization because you're essentially going and like pursuing this talent and belief. And you can further push like how, because talent and belief is so important to people, then maybe you have like better social safety nets for the poor, so that the poor don't have to spend their lives surviving, but then are able to like spend their lives pursuing things like their talent and belief. You'll have to do a lot of legwork to prove all this, and it require like a good amount of analysis to like get the panel to buy into it. But I think if you're able to do that level of analysis and you can prove fulfillment and then like better social safety nets, then I think that's a strong case on side government. This might be like a very the case may be completely wrong. I'm just telling you like what I can think of off the top of my head, but that might be like one possible line of argumentation for side government.
okay. Thank you.
No worries. Is that all? Cool.
Yeah.
If you want to, like, you can reach out to like on Discord if you have any like questions or doubts. Happy to like help in any way possible. But yeah, thank you for the debate, guys. Take care. All the best for the next rounds.
Thank you.